Welcome to Your Music Mentor, the podcast that empowers musicians to succeed in their musical journeys. I'm your host, Kevin Yor, and today we're diving into a crucial topic for aspiring music students: passing college entrance music exams. If you're a high school student or a parent of one, you know how important these exams are for getting into a music program. But don't worry, I'm here to help. Picture this. You've worked hard on your music for years, and now you're ready to take the next step in your musical journey. But there is a challenge ahead. You have to pass those college entrance exams. These exams are your gateway to the future you want, but they can feel daunting. That's where I come in. So let's talk about the three types of entrance exams. There's performance, theory, and oral skills. A performance-based exam is usually something that you will have to complete before you're given scholarships or even granted access to the university. So this is something that most musicians are aware of. You prepare with your private instructor, and you'll perform a few pieces that show your skill in a variety of contexts. So you'll perform a piece of music, possibly with an accompanist. Then there are the theory-based exams. These assess your understanding of music theory through written and now, in a lot of cases, computer-based tests. And these exams are not usually required before you show up to school. Some schools may have them the week before school starts, but a lot of schools will have them during the first week to place you in the right theory course. It just depends on the school's policies, so you want to check to see what the school requires. And depending on if you're an undergraduate or a graduate, you will have different types of theory exams that you have to take. The undergraduate ones are not so bad, but the graduate exams want to test your knowledge of everything an undergraduate exam would test, but it will also add things like, can you identify the form of a piece? Can you do a harmonic analysis? Things of that nature. In an undergraduate exam, it's usually scales, intervals, chords, things of that nature, a little more foundational, just to make sure you can handle that first semester of music theory. And oftentimes, even if you're a college scholarship student, what will happen is if you don't get in or you don't pass the theory exam, what will happen is you have to take rudimentary courses, which can delay your graduation, and it can get your entire course sequence off. So if you have to take a rudimentary theory class the first year, that may seem like a good idea because you're getting extra work. And if that's what happens, that's totally fine. But you want to try and avoid this if you can and go into that first semester of theory with a strong foundation so that you don't get overwhelmed in music school, because you're not going to have a ton of time to study. You'll be taking a lot of classes, playing in ensembles, private lessons, and most of your classes, if you're a typical music major, are going to consist of 1 and 2 credit courses that take up a lot of your time. So you want to try and get that theory-based exam taken care of, and you want to try and pass it so that you can get into the first semester and be on track, because it can mess everything up, including music history courses you have to take later and other courses that you need to take. It can actually delay your degree by quite a bit if you can't get in that first semester. The other type of exam is an oral skill exam. So here you'll typically identify pitches, intervals, and chords. You may have to sing back melodies. Sometimes they'll play individual notes on the piano and they'll have you sing back the note to make sure you can sing on pitch. It's possible you could have to do some sight singing where they'll put a piece in front of you, and just to see where you're at, they want to see if you can sight read. Now, this is not all that common. Most schools will just test your basic ability to identify intervals, chords, and they often won't even do a dictation, but dictation can be part of it as well. So you want to check with your university, the one that you've decided to go to, and ask what is going to be on the entrance exam. They should be able to tell you the types of materials you should be studying. because it's really important to make sure you study the right things for the right entrance exam. Each one of these exams is an opportunity to showcase your skills and passion for music. And that's something that is missed sometimes. You may think these are just exams where you go in and you have performance-based exam and you get a scholarship. Great. You've made a good impression because you got a scholarship. They trust your skill enough to say, hey, we're going to give you some money so that you can come to our school. It's kind of an offer to make it easier for you and to recruit you. But then if you go in and you fail the theory and the oral exams, even though you can take a rudimentary class, it does change the impression just a little bit of how far you can actually go in music. And you know, you can always recover if you're an amazing performer. The theory and the oral skills, they can be overlooked. But the oral skills especially are something that they really want to see you have a firm grasp of. So it's important, especially now we're coming into summer. Now is a time to start studying, because 3 months of studying would be more than enough time to really get the theory foundations taken care of and to start working on your ear in a very respectable way. And I'm going to talk to you about a course you can take. There's some options for you. We're going to talk about that at the end of this podcast. So let's talk about how you can prepare. How can you prepare for these exams? So practice, right? The best way to prepare for a performance exam is to practice. You know, you want to be able to play your music from memory if possible, because when you've memorized a piece, then you know it's firmly in your fingers or your voice, you know you've learned it, and that will allow you to start to go to the next level and start to interpret your music. A lot of times what we think is we need to set that metronome and we need to go in and just play everything in perfect time, but it's much more than that. It's not just about keeping appropriate tempos and tempo changes. You also need to think about the articulations. You need to think about your phrasing. This is something that a lot of music majors come in not knowing how to do. They actually have a lot of technique, but they don't know how to make the phrase sound like an appropriate phrase. So it's something that you can learn by listening to others. Especially as an undergraduate, we really learn by modeling in the beginning, and then later, once your music theory and your ear training skills get to the right level, you can start to kind of create your own interpretations based off what you understand about music, because your musical knowledge will increase. The thing that we often misunderstand about performers is it's not just technique, it's not just talent for being able to sing or perform, right? It's much more than that. You need to have a solid understanding of how music is actually put together. And the more you build up that knowledge, the more it infuses your performances. We often want to believe that performance is very intuitive and we don't want to think too much about it. And I agree that should be the case when you're actually performing. When you're actually sitting there and playing the piece, you should know it so well that you don't have to think about the notes and you can have a very intuitive understanding of how to perform the work. But how do you get that intuitive understanding? You listen to a lot of music, you practice, and you prepare yourself by developing a really good ear and developing a strong sense of theory for the music that already exists. What happens when you do that, when you start to build out your performances with external sources like music theory and ear training, counterpoint, form and analysis, all these subjects we can study, it starts to infuse your technique in a very natural way. And so your performances get better naturally. So it's not that you're going to sit there and think, okay, I have a secondary dominant here. It's resolving to the dominant that tonicizes this key area. So I'm going to have to make that secondary dominant more impactful. I want to make it really intensify the dominant. No, we don't really think this way when we're performing, but that knowledge is in there. once you reach a certain point, and it instinctually lets you know how to approach cadences and how to phrase better and how to interpret the music that you're trying to perform. So the next thing, obviously, would be study, right? You want to familiarize yourself with music theory and aural skills. So you want to get the fundamentals really solid, because one of the things that can help you in an exam is if you don't have to think about key signatures, if you just know that 2 sharps is D major or B minor, that B major and G sharp minor are related keys as well. If you just know this right off the bat and you know the difference between a relative key signature and a parallel key signature and how they interact, these are all things that are going to make it easier for you to ace your exam. Because if you can instantly look at a score or a piece of music they put in front of you that maybe you're going to sight read, and you can say, okay, I see one flat here. I know that is either F major or D minor. It looks like it's revolving around F. I don't see a C sharp. There's no leading tone in there, so it's probably not minor. That immediately tells you sort of the mood of the piece. So all the studying can just make it easier for you to focus more on the things that are going to be new in the exam, the things that are novel. So you want to have this solid foundation so that you can focus on the actual difficult parts of the exam. Because if you're struggling trying to figure out what interval is that a perfect fifth? Is that a perfect fourth? And I'm talking from a theoretical standpoint, not even from an ear training standpoint. If you can't identify your intervals quickly and your chords, then you are going to be wasting time in your exam and you're not going to be able to do as well as you could. And so that's why in this 3 months going into your exam, I highly recommend practicing, knowing your scales from multiple different angles, knowing your key signatures, knowing all of this, okay? If you can do this, then you'll be in a better position to be able to pass your exams with fluency. The other thing you want to do is get feedback. You want to seek input from your teachers or peers and record yourself for self-assessment. So when you're performing, you want to record yourself and you want to listen back. And then you want to critique yourself and then make adjustments. Don't be satisfied with any performance you do. Record yourself and say, what could I do to make it just a little bit better? Change one thing. Record yourself again. Did you make that one change? Great. Now what's another thing you can change? If you didn't make that change, try it again. Make that change. And you keep doing this on your practice pieces. Don't be satisfied with just being able to play the notes. Don't be satisfied with that. You need to put in the time to really focus on developing what this piece is going to sound like. And you want to have your own interpretation of it and not just someone else's, but at the same time, you want it to be stylistically correct. So now you have to do some research. You have to say, okay, who is this composer? Oh, they're a classical composer. All right, what is a classical period? The classical period was really focused on balance and harmony and clearly defined formal functions in a way. And so then you say, okay, how can I make this piece really clear? Great. So you go through this process. You learn about the time period for the piece that you've selected. And then you have another piece, maybe from a different time period. How should the sound of it change? How should your approach to it change? If you can go in and play a classical piece and then a modern piece and show dramatic fluidity in styles and changes between the two styles, then you're going to be in a better position to succeed and get that scholarship. Because that shows potential. And that's what they're looking for. Your professors, the people on these committees, they are looking for potential. They're not exactly looking for you to be refined and perfect, but they're looking for someone that shows versatility and that shows a certain amount of talent, of course, and technique on the instrument. So you always want to study the music that you're going to perform. And right now, since you're most likely younger if you're entering a music program, you don't have the experience of somebody that's been going 20, 30 years that just knows what makes Mozart and Beethoven different, or knows what makes Mozart and Haydn different, or whatever composer you're working with. That comes with experience. And so in the beginning, what you have to do is you have to start building up that theory knowledge, build up that ear, build up your technique, of course, but then you also need to think about listening to multiple different performances by the top performers in your field. See if you can find recordings of the music you're going to play, listen to it, and really evaluate and say, what are they doing? That's the same. Like get 2 or 3 recordings of the same piece, preferably 3 or even more, and say, what makes these similar? Are the tempos the same? Do they change? If they change, most likely they will. Why does one performer play it slower and another plays it faster? Which one do you like? And then you can start to make choices that are within the realm of what's out there without actually copying someone else. Because here's the thing, if you try and copy someone else, it's going to come across as stilted. So what you have to do is get the music under your fingers or in your voice so well that you can't possibly make a mistake. And then as you've been listening to these different recordings, you need to say, okay, now this performer played it fast. Why did this performer play it fast? Do they have a lot of technique? Are they trying to show that off? Did you like the performer that played a little slower? Why did they play it slower? Did it enhance the lyricism? Did it feel like the pacing was better? You make a judgment call on the performance you like best. You really get into that performance. You try and understand the decisions that the performer made because they're not all intuitive. And then you take that into your own playing and you get somewhere in the ballpark of that because you don't want to go too extreme and too outside the performance. You don't want to do something that's so radically different the committee looks at you and doesn't really know what to think because you were too creative almost. You want to try and be somewhat conservative in these entrance exams while still showcasing your own personal style. So this is why getting input from your private instructor, from other students, from really everyone that you can will help you. And the more you can perform this, your music in public, even if you're going to do a recording for the exam and you don't actually have to go in person, the more you get preparation by playing in front of people, the more you're going to learn about the piece and the better you're going to get. Something that often happens, and we don't talk about this too much, but if a composer writes a new piece, modern composer, living today, they write a new piece and they give it to a performer to play. The ideal situation is that performer plays it in multiple concerts, learns it for a year or two, and then they make a recording. Because you need to get used to the piece, you need to be able to look at it from multiple different angles. If you're only looking at it from one angle, then you're getting one perspective on the music, and it sounds two-dimensional. Your professors that you're auditioning for will be able to hear that. But if you can look at it from multiple different dimensions and start to build an internal understanding of the piece that exceeds more than just the technical requirements to play the piece, then you can really impress somebody with your performing. So this is an important note as well. The professors are going to know a basic level of ability very quickly. You're going to pick up your instrument or start to sing, and within just a few seconds, they're going to make a judgment, and it's usually correct. And the reason for this is that they have so much experience. By the end of my term teaching in a college, I taught for 8 years. I was a visiting assistant professor when I left, and I started as an adjunct. I worked my way up. But when I left, I was a visiting assistant professor, and it reached a point where I knew in sightseeing juries, the moment a student came in, how they started their first 2 notes, I knew whether or not that student was going to get an A, a B, a C, or a D, or an F. Because you just get so good at seeing the way people approach their music that you just have a lot of experience and So don't be offended if you get cut off. If you get cut off, that is not a reflection on how you're playing. In some ways, it could even be a technique to, one, save time, and two, see how you respond to an unusual situation, so just play it cool. But it could just mean that you're what they want. They've already decided that, and there's no need to make you play anymore. I've had that situation too, where I've had exams and I knew that I could just cut off a student after a few seconds because I knew that they were going to get an A. You could just tell from the way they approached everything. But of course, in fairness, you always have to complete the entire exam. Auditions could be a little bit different though. So make sure that you prepare to take a mock exam at some point to simulate the real experience. So performance, make sure you perform in front of a few people who are acting like they're going to judge you. For music theory, take a music theory test, pencil and paper or computer based if that's what they're going to be doing in the actual exam. And have somebody give you an oral exam so that you can test your ear in real time. These are all things you can do with a private instructor, and there aren't all that many music theory prep programs. The AP music theory tests that we have you take are usually more advanced than what you'd get in an entrance exam for the undergraduate level. So keep that in mind as well. And I'm going to talk to you about something you can do as we get to the end of this. All right, so when you're taking the actual exam, let's say you're ready now. So let's discuss how to approach the exam day. You want to get a good night's sleep, but it's just not the night before only, okay? Have you ever done this thing where you get a good night's sleep? You're like, oh, I slept for 8.5 hours. It was amazing. I've never slept that long. I slept great. But you feel groggy. Part of it, I think, has to do with the fact that when you have an inconsistent sleep schedule, getting extra sleep can actually keep that sleep inertia going, and it actually can make you a little bit more tired. So getting a good night's sleep is good, but try and do it for the week before. If you know that your exam is at 8 in the morning, get used to waking up, getting ready, and being ready to leave with enough time to get to that exam at 8 a.m. So maybe you're dressed and ready to go by 7 a.m. every day. Do that for a week, because if you do this, when the day actually comes, it'll be old hat, the expression we can use here. It'll be something that you've done so much that that part of it is taken care of. You got into a routine. You should also arrive early. You want to arrive at least 30 minutes prior to your exam. And that doesn't mean 30 minutes in the parking lot. That means you're sitting there waiting 30 minutes before your exam starts, because you do not want to be late to your exam. That would be one, it's going to leave a very bad impression. And even if you get the scholarship or you pass the exam, you've now made a poor first impression. So arrive early, be at the exam 30 minutes early. You can bring some coffee with you or whatever, unless that's going to dry out your throat if you're a singer or something like that. But get there early so that you don't have to stress, because you don't want to go into a performance or an exam overly amped up. But you also don't want to get there too early. Like, you don't want to be there an hour before the exam, because now you're sitting there ruminating and you're just going to make it worse for yourself. Don't forget to bring your materials, your music, pencil, any other essentials you need. Bring extra valve oil if you're a brass player. I mean, just be ready for anything, essentially, but don't overdo it, because I think there's something to this where if you think you're going to fail or you think something's going to happen, somehow you make it happen. So don't do that. Just be calm about it, but make sure you bring everything you need and just stay calm. Remember to breathe and focus on the music. If you get nervous, one thing which never worked for me, but it worked for some of my students, and I heard this from another performer. One thing you can do is tense every muscle in your body, just kind of flex them for a few seconds and then release, and then do that a few times. Supposedly, it helps certain people relax. Also, taking a big breath, not in your chest, but kind of a belly breath, can help you to relax. If you meditate before the exam. Meditation can be really effective for just calming you. And once you are ready for the exam and you've gone in and you've done everything you could, you can take a moment to reflect on your experience after the exam and identify any areas of improvement, because this is not going to be your first exam. It's not going to be your first performance. Get in the habit of always afterwards at some point, preferably right after, so when you're closer to the actual experience, you can go through and just kind of think about what happened and think about areas where you can improve, but also think about the things that you did well and give yourself credit for making it through an exam, because these are the gauntlets we have to pass as musicians, and everybody goes through it. All your professors at some point were a student just like you doing these performances, and you can learn a lot from it even if you don't get the result you want. I have a lot of experience helping students pass these exams and learning music theory and ear training in general. 8 years as a professor, and in the last year, I've been working with students to help them actually pass these exams. And so I've been offering a course now for 1 year. It's never really been publicly available. It's always been students have to come to me and then I'll work with them. But every student who studied with me has passed their exams. I've had the pleasure of working with both bachelor and graduate students, each achieving success on their path to a rewarding music program. So I want to take a moment now to introduce my prep course, which is designed to help you conquer these entrance exams. So in my course, this is what you'll get. You're going to get lots of practice. It's a comprehensive practice drills for all exam types. Study materials. I'm going to give you a detailed study guide covering all the essential concepts. Feedback, really important. You'll get personalized feedback tailored to your progress, and there will be mock exams as well. So we're going to do some mock exams to build your confidence. So this course is going to run in 2 sessions. Session 1 is going to be May 12th to June 6th. It's only 4 weeks. And session 2 is June 23rd to July 18th. So I want to talk a little bit about why you really want to take the earlier course if possible. The way this course is set up is I'm going to give you all the tools, all the practice exercises, and a schedule that you should follow to be ready as much as you can be for your entrance exams. And it's going to take more than 4 weeks for you to be ready. What I'm going to do is teach you how to use the drills and the exercises and teach you how to practice. And then you will go off on your own using the information you learned in these sessions. So the idea here is that I am training you to teach yourself and to prepare yourself for these exams. The course is really designed to set you up for success, ensuring you pass your entrance exams and gain admission to your desired music program. So if you would like to learn more about this, you can go to my website at UreMusic.com. Again, that's my last name, UreMusic.com. If you would like to talk with me, you can click the book a call button. They're free, and I can talk to you about the exam and determine whether or not this is going to be something that's right for you. But you want to sign up now so that you can be sure to get a seat, because these are going to be live courses. I'm going to be actually creating the materials as we go, because every year there's new developments in these entrance exams, and every time I teach this, I get better at teaching it. So you'll be getting these materials as I create them in the actual exam, but you're going to have plenty of exercises, and you will, if you follow the instructions, you should be able to pass your exams. Even if you don't really know how to read notes yet, we can cover that as well. But that's why if you're unsure that this exam is right for you, I encourage you to schedule a call with me, because 15 minutes, we can determine whether or not this is going to help you. And I want to make sure that you're right for this program. Again, it's going to be a highly intensive program. You have to be self-motivated. I will be with you for 4 weeks to train you in all the concepts and to teach you how to complete the practice drills, which take anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour a day. We keep it real simple so that you can work on your application, your performances, work with your private instructor to learn the music for your auditions, So you can do all that and you won't get overwhelmed with this course. So if that's something you're interested in, book a call with me, or you can go over to UreMusic.com and sign up. There is a coupon code from this podcast only, and it will be available for a short time. You can go over to UreMusic.com, and when you select the music theory prep course, it'll be right on the front page. Just enter Your Music Mentor in the checkout as a coupon code. I will also include a link to that in the description of this video. Now, if you're watching this or listening to it somewhere where there isn't a description, you can go to my YouTube channel and you'll be able to find it there. My YouTube channel is at Your Music. If you just search for Kevin Your YouTube, it'll pop right up. So thank you for tuning in to Your Music Mentor. I hope this episode has provided you with valuable insights. And if you're ready to take your music education to the next level, visit my website at UreMusic.com to learn more about my prep course and the upcoming sessions. Until next time, keep practicing and remember that your musical journey matters.